Holy cow. Been trying to do the inner and outer tie rod and sway bar on this guy, and everything is so seized up. Holy sh. Alright, Austin here today. We're going to be changing out the sway bar links and the inner and outer tie rod ends on a 2004 Toyota Corolla. Let's get started. First thing we're going to do is jack it up. Next, if you have any hub covers, you're going to have to take those off. Now we need to take the lug nuts off. In our case, a 13/16 fits on there pretty good. Alright, as you can see, the tire is just freely swinging there, and that's really great because the other side was actually seized onto the hub. The rim was seized onto the hub, so I had to bang it around with a rubber mallet to try and dislodge that rust. Alright, so once we get in here, you can see our sway bar link right here, where it attaches up here to the strut, and then it attaches down here, and then we've got our castle nut for the outer tie rod end connecting into the back of this hub assembly, and then right here is where, let's get to focus, this is where we have a nut right here that then locks this outer tie rod onto the inner tie rod, and then we've got our rack and pinion boot here. So let's tear into it. Alright, so the way that these are set up on this particular Corolla, at least, is there's a hex in that bolt for the ball joint inside here, and I didn't have a large enough box head, so I'm going to be using an adjustable wrench, and so it's just righty tighty lefty loosey. I've already soaked it down with PB Blaster because the other side was horrendous. It took me way too long, so we're going to see if we can get through this side a little quicker. See if I can even get this to turn. There we go. Alright, so it's so seized up that the bolt wouldn't even turn, and now, yeah, if you feel the back of it, this is now turning. So because this is so rusted and soft, I mean, it's a 2004 and it's 2021 now, so you know, we're talking about almost 20 years, like 17 years, I guess. And this car's been put through hell, man, and these are going to be the original ones on there, so I'm just having to punch in a next size up hex wrench. I'm going to put it up here because I'm going to be trying to turn this nut counterclockwise. There we go, and that's nice and loose right now. That's awesome. Soaking stuff in PB Blaster or WD-40 or whatever your spray of choice is. Really makes a difference. Just get it on there a couple hours in advance. And there you go. That's the top one. And the same thing for the bottom one. Alright, there we go, finally. Woo! Broke that loose. Yeah, so here we go, you can kind of see it here. You want to get your Allen in there. Now that you got it broke loose, and we're going to be spinning it clockwise from our position here. Trying to do this with one hand. Alright, there you go, and then you just give this guy a little tappy. Boom. And you've got a Swaybar link. Alright, so get this cotter pin off of here. Man, this filming business and trying to do car work with one hand is kind of ridiculous. Gonna have to get a tripod or something. Alright. There's that cotter pin. Everything's just rusted as can be. This castle nut is going to be an 18mm. It's going to be the same size as both of the Swaybar nuts. So let's alright, yeah, that's not going to come off without a fight. That's alright. Lucky I've got the right tools. Five-foot cheater bar. It doesn't care what's on there as long as you can get something with a socket or whatever. Fits in the pipe. It's one hell of a cheater bar. Alright, then there we go. Alright, then we'll come in here and grab this clip-em hose clamp. Long screwdriver so you can actually see if I can video this. Alright, there's that single-use clip clamp, whatever. All right, and then get our boot off of here. Instead of trying to fiddle around with it and salvage the boot, since I already have another one and this one's 17 years older, so I'm just gonna replace it. So I'm just gonna cut it off instead of fighting it. All right, well, we've got our boot off, and you can now see the steering rack. Just the very end of it right here. And then we've got the actual female portion of the inner tie rod that screws onto the rack. So now we gotta get the outer tie rod off of the inner tie rod so we can get our tool on there and then remove the inner tie rod. So I'm gonna give this about 5 minutes a try and see if I can't get this locking bolt loose, and if not, I'm just gonna cut it off. And part of the problem that I'm having getting these off is I don't have adequate room to put large tools in there that are long enough to get proper leverage. You know what? All right, I'm fed up with this. I fought with the other side far too long. I'm not even gonna try to undo it on this side. I was gonna do it for your sake, but you screwed the top nut farther on so that it moves away from the outer tie rod, and that keeps it from being locked in place so tight. Oh yeah, look at that grease. That's disgusting. That's why we're changing all this out. There we go. There's the outer tie rod end with the end of the inner tie rod end. And there's the remainder of our inner tie rod end. So let's get our tie rod end remover tool. So here's your inner tie rod removal tool. Come on. There you go. So this is a big tube meant to slide over your inner tie rod with a 1/2-inch adapter in the back so that you can throw your 1/2-inch breaker bar on there. 29 millimeter is what this Corolla 04 is taking, and so this is gonna slide onto those flat spaces I told you about and was showing you. So just like that. Okay, that's slid on there. And pay attention to these wings. Okay, because our tube section of the tool has these two openings with a locking section, a mechanism on it to lock those wings in, so you can turn it with your breaker bar. Okay, so I had to get my second hand back here to grab onto both of those little wings and push them into the little slot there, and then I can use my same hand to close this little latch for the closing mechanism. Now we've got this on there. It's just one big wrench basically, and I'm going to put my breaker bar on there and we'll turn it off. There we go. That was it. Once it's broke free, it's incredibly easy to turn by hand. go. All right, so we're gonna start with installing our little, I think they call it like a, I don't know what they call this. It's some kind of washer, but it locks into those two grooves right there in the middle. And so that goes on first. I guess put that on the end of there to at least get it started, and you're just gonna thread this guy in hand tight, and then I'm gonna need to get that washer into those two grooves before we tighten it down. I can feel them, they've dropped into place. So we're gonna finish hand tightening this. Okay, that's it right there, hand tight. Alright, so this inner tie rod end, the torque specs on that is going to be 74 foot-pounds, I believe. Yep, it's going to be 74 foot-pounds. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing we did when we took the inner tie rod off. We're going to get that 29 in there. Slide our tool sleeve on there and lock it into place. There we go. Then we're going to put our, make sure it's going the right direction. Put our torque wrench on there and go until it clicks. And one more time. There we go. So, take that off. Unclip that, pull this out. All right, and now our inner tie rod's in place. Then we're gonna put our boot on with the appropriate sized clamps. Open this one all the way up so I can put the boot on first, and then just wrap this around it. And this one, I'm just gonna open up a little bit and slide it on the front when I'm ready. So pull that nut off the end there, slide your boot on, and I can't get a good angle to show you getting the boot on, but this front piece, there's a little divot in the actual tie rod that this front end of the boot will basically clip into. If it's giving you trouble, you can always give it just a very, very tiny squirt. You don't want to go overboard with this stuff. Just a little bit right on the steering rack where the boot goes to create a lubricant to help it slide on. But you don't want to put too much on there so it slides off later on. Alright, now that you've got your boot on, take your clamp. Now we're going to wrap it around the back of the boot. Alright, looks like my little clamp's a number 8mm. Put a little tiny ratchet on there and go ahead and tighten it up pretty tight. I mean, don't over tighten it because you don't want to strip the threads on the clamp, but definitely make sure that it's on there very securely. And now for the small clamp. Same thing with this one. Don't over tighten it, but make sure you get it nice and tight. You don't want it moving around on you and allowing any kind of dust or debris to get up in there and mess with that ball joint. Alright, and then you're going to want to go get your your car aligned after you do this, but to get it so you can at least have it fairly close, go ahead and count the threads before you unscrew that lock nut when you're taking everything apart. So I'm gonna, on this other side was 5 threads, and this side's gonna be about 7.5. Alright, and then we're gonna put our outer tie rod end on. It just screws right onto the threads there. Position that bolt to go through this hole right here. Alright, once you've got that in there, taking your castle nut. Alright, then you're going to grab your 18 socket. I'll get this one on there. And it looked like torque spec for this one was roughly 30 to 36 pounds or so. Or 2.5 to 4.5 threads showing. Come on, focus. There we go. 2.5 to 3, 2.5 to 4.5 threads showing right there. So as you can see, I'm almost there. All right, cool. Mine didn't come with a new cotter pin, and I'm not going to use this old one, so you could put a new cotter pin through that castle nut. And then what we're gonna want to do is tighten this one up, this locking nut. Alright, so you're gonna want to tighten that sucker down pretty good, because that's what's going to lock your outer tie rod end into place. Okay, so there you go. We've now installed the inner and the outer tie rod. Now to put the sway bar back into place. Alright, this is gonna work the same way it did when we took it out. Top side's gonna come from the back, bottom side's gonna come from the front. I'm gonna have to readjust the position of the threaded parts so that you can actually get them through both holes. Alright, so I've got one side well through, so I'm gonna put the bolt on there just to keep it in the hole, and then I can work with this one to come through here. Very gentle. Any luck, our new ones are 18 as well, which they are. Alright, tighten that up real good. And then, same thing with this one, we're just gonna tighten it up real good. Alright, so this one's spinning on me. I just gotta, this one actually has a space back here to get a open-end wrench. So you want to be very mindful of that boot because you'd hate to rip a brand new boot. Alright. And as you can see, we've got our brand new Swaybar link pre-installed, our brand new outer tie rod ends, brand new inner tie rod ends, and our rack boot. I hope this was helpful. If it was, like and subscribe. Ask questions, leave comments, correct me if I was wrong about something, and I'll see you next time. So here we have our new Swaybar link, old Swaybar link. This is the new outer tie rod end and the new inner tie rod end. And then the old outer tie rod end and the old inner tie rod end. Here's the old boot and the new boot. So as you can tell, it was definitely time for a new one. We've got, both of the boots are ripped. They're non-serviceable Swaybar links as opposed to where these have the spot for your grease nipple. And then these also just move really easily. And these, there we go. They're much more difficult to actually move around. So it's gonna have fresh grease, nice fresh boots that aren't ripped. Now you have a nice ball joint in there, and not have something so loosey goosey. And it's also quite a bit thicker actually. It looks like twice as thick as the original one, so that's cool.